It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Fear the Walking Dead. In this video, I'm gonna try to explain what I think Alicia's story is gonna be going forward and what her future is gonna look like and how she might get an adaptation of Rick Grimes' comic book storyline. But before we do talk about all of that, if you're not caught up with the latest episode of Fear, which is Season 7, Episode 8, the mid-season finale, you don't want to watch this video. There's a major spoiler in this video about what happens in that episode. So if you haven't watched that episode, you do not want to watch this video. Wait until you watch the mid-season finale, which is going to come out next week for those of you that don't have AMC Plus. And obviously for those who do have it, you would have probably seen it by now. If you haven't watched the episode, don't watch this video because it will spoil a lot of stuff for you. So with that said, stay tuned. We'll be right back to break this down. Alright, as always, before we jump into this, smash that like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. If any of the shows on the left interest you, then you definitely want to stick around and subscribe because those are the shows that I react to or I cover in depth on the channel. All the links to my social media pages is also down below and in the description, so make sure to follow me in any of those. With that said, let's dive right into it. So, the biggest reveal or a major event that happened in the mid-season finale of Season 7 of Fear was that Alicia was bit on the arm and she was forced to cut off her arm. Now, what is interesting is that it took her quite a while to cut the arm off. So the infection could have spread to her body or to other parts of her body, and she could have very easily died and turned into a walker. But that didn't happen, which is interesting. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But she was finally able to cut her arm to a point where she thought maybe that would be the end of where the infection could have spread. But what is very interesting is that she passes out, and then when she wakes up, she finds out that Will has actually now cut off the arm to a much higher place than where Alicia had originally cut it off. And it's interesting because Alicia knows that she didn't make it. She knows that she wasn't able to cut off her own arm in time and the infection had definitely spread to other parts of her body. When Will tells her that she did have a fever, she is sure that the infection is still in her. Later on, when she talks to Morgan, she tells him that she's going to die at some point. The infection is still in her. She knows that she's gonna die. Will she die at some point? We'll also come back to that. But what I do want to talk about first, which is very interesting, is that when she reveals that her arm was cut off to Morgan, she actually shows him this. Now, I was really confused when I first saw this, but when thinking about it a little bit, I figured out what they did. So, obviously, Alicia's arm was cut off to this part, and then what she did is she actually saved her amputated arm until all of the flesh had decomposed. And then she took the bones from her own arm and created a prosthetic arm with it, which is actually super interesting and awesome to think about. It's a pretty cool idea and a pretty cool look for a prosthetic arm. But with that said, let's get back on track and talk about if Alicia's gonna die or not. Obviously, we haven't seen this ever before, so it's anyone's guess whether it's physically possible in that world. But one thing that people do bring up is that maybe she's immune, which means that the infection doesn't impact her the same way as it does the others, which means if you treat it in time, she'll be fine. So even if they didn't amputate her arm, but if they treated her right away, she would be able to survive. Now, this is one of the theories that I'm definitely against because not only does that open the door for an end to the story of The Walking Dead, which I don't want to see in this way. Like, I do want to see an ending, but not in a way where there's a immune person. And also what it does is make things extremely similar to another post-apocalyptic story, The Last of Us, with Ellie. So because of that, I'm totally against that theory. But the other possibility is that maybe something did happen to her that is causing the infection to impact her differently than others. Now, what could that possibly be? If you remember, in season 4 of Fear, I think, Alicia actually killed a walker up close and personal. A walker that actually had high rates of radioactive material in it. She actually got the blood of the walker all over her. When we saw that, when it aired, everyone thought that she's gonna die because the radioactive material is gonna kill her. Because obviously the radioactive material can kill you if it's in high doses and if it's not treated. But obviously she didn't die. But maybe it is the effect of the radioactive poison that entered her body, which is causing her to react to the infection of the virus of the walkers a lot differently than everyone else. That would be more interesting and a better explanation of why it's taking Alicia so long to die when she was bitten and she didn't cut off the arm in time. Now, with that said, do I think she's gonna die? I'm afraid so. I think that they would never have done something like this drastic, if they didn't want to, in the future, kill the character. Like, if they wanted the shock value and for her to get a new look, they could have easily just had her cut off the arm in time and not even entertain the idea of her possibly still having the infection in her. You know what I mean? Like, having that possibility just means that they probably know that they're not gonna have the character in maybe 2 seasons or so, and they're building up to her death earlier on. And because she's such a massive character, they thought the best way to do that is through this type of reveal, way ahead of time. Now, with all of that out of the way, how is this gonna connect to Rick? Well, fans of the comic book know that Rick actually had his hand cut off by the governor. And then later on, when he went to a new community called Commonwealth, and after a lot of stuff went down at the Commonwealth, which I'm not going to talk about, but it involved a sort of civil war in the Walking Dead comic book, Rick Grimes became a symbol of resilience and freedom. And he actually had his statue built and placed at the center of the Commonwealth, which is the place that he lived in and the place that he was a pretty important figure in. So what if Alicia getting her arm cut off is an indication that she could be getting that part of Rick's comic book storyline? Now, one thing I do want to mention right away is that it might not really happen because they've already started the story that's going to lead to this moment in The Walking Dead's original show, but maybe that's just to throw us off. And the other very interesting part of this whole thing is that we know that Fear is getting a type of civil war in season 7B. Alicia pretty much said, "This is war," to Strand. And they've been teasing at a civil war between Victor Strand and Morgan by having posters of them facing off as if they're at war. And obviously, like I mentioned, a big part of the story that leads to Rick getting a statue is a civil war that happens in the community that he's living in. So what I'm trying to say is that the civil war building up between Morgan's group and Victor's group could be an adaptation of the civil war that happened in the comic book, and Alicia getting her arm cut off could be an indication that she's the one that's gonna get Rick's comic story that's gonna lead to him getting a statue. Again, I'm trying to be as spoiler-free as possible when it comes to the comic storyline, but for comic readers, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I'm definitely interested to know everyone's thoughts and opinions. Do you think that there's a possibility that Alicia's gonna die? Or do you think that they're not gonna kill her and the fact that she may still have the infection in her doesn't mean anything? And what are your thoughts about the way that her arm being cut off reveal came and everything surrounding that? And what are your thoughts about her possibly getting an adaptation of Rick's comic book storyline? Do you think that'll happen, or do you think they're not gonna do that? That's just way too big of a change. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. If you are not a subscriber, subscribe to join our community, smash that like button and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.